wake up early. I woke up like 6 a.m. But nothing really happened. But I nearly clicked this authorized button that would have basically like had my Twitter taken over. And then I'm like, hang on, why does Calendly need to connect with my ex for me to get a meeting?
So here in Austin, I've seen driverless Waymo cars now.
Yeah.
And the first time it is kind of like, holy shit, there's nobody in that vehicle that's on the road. Now that I've seen it, say 20 times, don't think twice.
So this week I took a look at, it's almost like meme stock fever, Hims and Hers Health, the ticker HIMS, HIMS. I think it's an interesting company. The financials are actually pretty good. Like they've just flipped into being like properly net income positive.
The space industry is still relatively in its infancy. If the thesis is that we could basically do things we've never been able to do as a species from space, then obviously that becomes one of the, if not the most important new markets ever.
This is Wall Street Wildlife. Before we get to this week's show, a short word from our sponsors.
All right. If you're serious about investing, you need to know about public.com. That's where you can invest in everything: stocks, options, bonds, crypto. They even offer some of the highest yields in the industry, like the bond account 6% or higher yield that remains locked in even if the Fed cuts rates.
What sets Public apart is how they give you the tools you need to make informed investment decisions. Their built-in AI tool called Alpha doesn't just tell you if an asset is moving, it tells you why the asset's moving, so you can actually understand what's driving your portfolio performance. Public is a FINRA-registered, SIPC-insured, US-based company with a customer support team that actually cares.
Bottom line, your investments deserve a platform that takes them as seriously as you do. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/wildlife and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. That's public.com/wildlife.
Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description. For an advertising-free version of the show, check out patreon.com/Wall Street Wildlife. Hello and welcome to the latest Wall Street Wildlife with Krzysztof and Luke. A banger of an episode today with a ton of topics. Uber's maneuvers in autonomous vehicles. Can we believe what the CEO is saying? Badger nearly got scammed. I'll tell you all about that. Monkey wants some advice on his ASTS space mobile position. The Transmedics short report got shorted. And I ain't selling Palantir, even at 120 times gross profit. I'm going to tell you why. Plus, we go on stock safari with weight loss drugs and Google Maps for planet Earth.
Badger, were you out partying last night?
Ooh, can you hear it? I'm sick. I'm sick. There's two of us in the house are sick. And yeah, okay, the two of us were partying quite hard. About a week ago, dancing on tables in our ski boots. And yeah, we're both sick. We went to, actually, so we're cooking for everybody tonight. And we went to the pharmacy today and we both bought like a box each of these like day nurse, night nurse kind of capsules. You know, you just like glug the thing. And I'm in the kitchen, I'm like mixing them up and I pour them out. I give the other one to Christine, she's sick. And we both drink them. We look at them, we're like, did we just drink the day one or the night one? And I've randomly pulled like two things out, I think. We both drank our night version. So if I start like dropping off on the podcast, like let me know, shout at me.
Well, not only can I hear it, I could see it. You look a little bit more rakish than usual.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange to be all of a sudden the representative of what it means to be clean cut and debonair. That's usually your job. But look, that's the thing about life, listeners. You just never know which side of the windshield you're going to be, the bug or the windshield. Right. That's the saying. Anyway, glad you're alive.
You're looking bug-like and I'm looking windshield-like right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel fresh as a daisy. Okay. Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff going on out there in the world. One thing that's not on our agenda, but I just thought I'd mention right off the bat because I realized it's one of your portfolio holdings. Did you see? This is a weird thing. Nvidia released its own investment holdings. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah. I did a year ago, and I saw, like, you mentioned it. I hadn't read it, but yeah, go on, carry on. I know what you're going to say.
So
But
there's that, right?
yeah.
I noticed because they just bought a significant position in one of my King of the Jungle stocks,
Hmm.
but they also revealed that they had a position in Nanox.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is Nvidia doing investing in in a potential shitco not yet established digital imaging X-ray company?
Hmm.
Like, in other words, when they revealed that they have a position in Nubius, that makes sense because that's an AI company that Nvidia works with, and I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world. But it's just sometimes the things you learn in this industry are mind-boggling. So,
Yeah.
anyway, side note.
Yeah, cool. I think we saw that like a year and a half ago, and as a consequence, like Nanox jumped up. I was a Nanox shareholder at the time. It didn't make a lot of sense. I kind of agree. Like they do imaging, maybe there's something AI-ish in there, but anyway, I'm no longer a Nanox shareholder, but I did see it popped up again. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, right on. So you were what? Nearly scammed? Tell us,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
give us the. It's sad. It's sad. I hate the thought of seeing my poor innocent badger being taken advantage of. Let me at him. What happened?
Though nothing really happened, but it was just nearly clicked this authorized button that would have basically like had my Twitter taken over. Um, and I've posted a tweet that's done some numbers, and I think I might have saved a few other people because they said a couple of people popped up on my thread and said, "Oh, I got this email as well." So, hopefully these actors, bad actors, aren't being too successful. But essentially, it's quite a cunning scam, I suppose. It preys on our desire as podcasters to get engagement and get like a wider reach. I had some journalist called Max something pop up on my Twitter in the DMs and say, "Hey Luke, we're doing a piece for TechCrunch, which is like a Twitter account, and it's a journalist organization with like 10 million followers. So it's like a pretty huge account. And they're like, we're doing a piece. We might be interested in your take on some aspect. Can we meet to chat about it?" So I'm like, yeah, okay, that'd be great. Why not? Like the next day, the guy sends me what he says is a Calendly link. I don't know if you've used Calendly before. Like you send a link to someone, they can see all your free time and you pick a slot. So I click the calendar, and it's like I woke up at I wake up early. I woke up at like 6 a.m. So my first hour of my day is just like a combination of like doom scrolling and trying to be somewhat productive. So like the first thing I do is, I got a message from this Max guy, and I click the Calendly link, and it's like it comes up with what looks like a very legitimate, like authorized Calendly to connect with your ex. And I nearly hit the button, and I'm like, hang on, why does Calendly need to connect with my ex for me to get a meeting? So I'm like, I'll have some coffee and I'll figure what's going on here. Yeah, so it's an account takeover scam. If I click that button, they've created, I assume, or they've bought like a fake, like they've created like their own app, which claims to be Calendly. There is no real Calendly integration with X. They've made this up, but it looks legit. And then if I click the authorize, it would have the ability to like change certain details on my Twitter account. And I assume the first thing they would do is change the email address and change the phone number. And then I'm out of business for a chunk of time. They probably did this successfully to that Max guy. And then, I don't know about you, I'm always getting like crypto scams. They probably then have like my verified account with like 15,000 followers, and they'll use that to crypto scam a bunch of people. And at the same time, try and pretend that Luke is the journalist trying to lure a bunch of other people into this TechCrunch pyramid scam nonsense.
I'm glad you didn't actually fall in the ditch.
Mm.
But you know what this makes me think? Our future. So right now, it's even astonishing all the people from the older generations that get scammed by something as to us obvious as like the obvious phishing scams, right? The numbers of people, innocent older people usually that have taken by it. Can you imagine the sophistication of this stuff like 10 years from now?
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I don't mean to be fear mongering, but I think it's going to be a whole different world. And that's why, yeah, maybe to your point, cybersecurity stuff and the company that I recently did a deep dive on, Rubric, how to get your stuff back is going to be as important. it won't be a question maybe of if, but when you get taken by one of these. I mean, really, like imagine getting a sophisticated email that actually looks exactly like it should.
Or like a video call from you, right? And I think I'm talking to Krzysztof. Like, we're not far away from being able to do that convincingly.
Yeah, I'm like, Luke, I'm lost in Kenya. Been taken. Send me 5 million in diamonds.
Yeah.
And you're like, right away, buddy, right away. See, that's loyalty. I feel you. Okay.
Yeah. It's scary stuff. Anyway, so I sort of signed off that Twitter with "Be careful out there, folks." Like, be careful out there. Like, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper to target accounts. Like previously, these guys would go after like bigger accounts because it cost them some resources to try and execute a scam like this. But now it's costs almost nothing. Like, they can do this stuff with highly targeted phishing attacks for like almost no money, for like cents. So that means they're going to continue to do it, and they're just going to attack even more people.
Yeah, right. Scary stuff. I did retweet that, so I remember you posting it. Yes.
All right. You want some advice with your ASTS stock position? What's happening?
I do. So the backdrop here is initially I wanted to take this question to our Patreon community because it's, lively and we have some good people there and we share our trades on the dolphin tier, so on and so forth. I thought, instead of making a decision like I usually do, what if I engage the community? But in this case, I thought I wanted to talk to the expert in the room, my buddy Badger, to help me think this through a little bit. So this is a genuine question. It's not like a setup or like that I've decided. I'm curious how you maybe would frame this, or what you would want me to consider more of, or whatever. Here's the context. I am now increasingly bullish on ASTS. I haven't felt, as I do more and more research on this, I haven't felt this way since EOS, when it was at 70 cents. And I know, knowing yourself as an investor, is when I've made errors in the past, at least in the recent past, it's when I became over exuberant in a particular position, so that portfolio management got away from me. But to argue against myself, I love a concentrated portfolio. There are many, many benefits to a concentrated portfolio when you really, really know your stuff. So I'm going to say to you that I think ASTS really might become one of these generational companies and not too long from now. I still haven't done the deep dive, so you kind of have to take me on faith in a way, because this isn't the time to do the deep dive on that. Just assume that I believe that,
Sure.
And that sort of by even like end of 25 into 26, a year from now, like the switch will actually go on, and God only knows what might happen if successful. And I think the probabilities are high.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, right now ASTS is my second largest position in King Over the Jungle. I've got EOS. I'm just looking at the numbers. Sorry, I don't have percentages in front of me, but my EOS shares are worth 1,700, and I swore I wouldn't sell a single one. So I'm going to abide by that resolution. And then number two are my ASTS shares, worth $644. And then beneath that are my Relay shares, worth $500. Below that are my Iris Energy shares at $338. And the market is closed today. Those are my top four.
Yep.
And right beneath that is Nebius worth $90. So there's a big drop off. So I basically have four large positions.
Yep.
And underneath Nebius, I have Transmedics, which I believe in. And then we get into the smaller positions: Calumet, Tesla, Avita, Nintendo, basically like starter little, I want these in my portfolio, but I haven't really gotten into them. Here was my thinking. I'm like, damn, how do I get me more ASTS shares? One option, well, actually, I'm going to let you do a little more of the talking, but basically I'm thinking to myself, I want more ASTS shares. Should I sell some of these smaller positions like Transmedics, like Calumet, like Avita Medical, not because I made any mistakes, not because I don't believe in them being worth a lot more, but because I really, really, really want more ASTS right now.
Okay, so this is a portfolio where you're adding new money, and it's, as we record, it's the 17th of February, so you only got to wait, 12 days, so you got some new money coming in. You did, maybe you framed the question somewhat misleadingly, though, because you said, I've got 4 large positions. You haven't. You've got one freaking huge position, EOS, and then you got a few other little things, right? How much do you say EOS must be about half the portfolio, I guess?
Well, oh shit, I'm sorry. I also forgot Chainlink.
Okay.
You know what? Give me 1 second. It's silly for me not to give you the actual percentages. I'm gonna give them to you right now. Meantime, while this is pulling up here, what's your definition? What's your own personal definition of a, call it, substantial position?
5%.
5%, right?
Yeah, but I'm not Mr. Concentration, and I'm like Mr. I'm at the end of my life now.
Yeah, if you keep up your parting ways, yeah, you are. So right, so that is, I knew that's one of the things that, there's no one perfect solution for these questions, but still, like, maybe you're saying what, 5%?
For me, I understand you're offering a
Right,
different. Plus, also,
5%.
this is the King of the Jungle portfolio, which is not your real money portfolio where you'll operate a different strategy.
Yeah, but for our audience, and I think for this project that we're doing together, I'm treating the King of the Jungle since its inception as though I'm doing my very best to do my very best. So yes, it's less in terms of money, but in terms of, I think, mindset, it's kind of identical. So the facts are that EOS is at 43%,
Right.
huge.
Yeah.
ASTS is at 16. Relay is at 12, Iris is at 8, and Chainlink is at 8.
Sure.
And all the other ones are 2 and below.
So my position stands. Like, that EOS position is ridiculous. And if you want to find new money, to me, that's like an easy trim. So, but maybe, I mean, obviously this is your strategy and you have to ask yourself the question to try and get to the answer that you think is right. So this is so ethereal. You can't make it a tangible numbers question, but you have to try and determine for yourself, I think, like your view of the risk-based return of each of those companies, and then say to yourself, am I so confident in the risk versus return conversation for EOS that it deserves to be like 4 times bigger than the next thing, pretty much, in my portfolio?
I've done that, and I think that is my conclusion. Not least because the charts that you see, the life cycle of a company,
Mhm.
EOS is at the very, very bottom of the hockey stick curve.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so I don't want to go on and on about EOS, but I think in general, when you have what I see is all of the tailwinds lining up, and you have a stock that is still relatively undiscovered, those are like the fattest pitches you ever get in the market. So yes, I could trim EOS, but I said I wouldn't. I don't know. This is kind of stupid. I said I wouldn't out of principle because those have always been my biggest mistakes in investing. You've not sold a single share of Intuitive Surgical for the same kind of call it, I don't know, meta reason.
Yep.
I'm approaching it. Let's take this not so much as a portfolio rebalancing problem. I'm saying to you, I want to keep my EOS position huge. It's more about selling some of the companies I think are going to be great, fine, great slash very good. Like Transmedics, I think in 10 years might be worth a whole lot, but they're not going to be worth a whole lot like next year potentially the way ASTS might be. So I'm kind of thinking like that this is like an opportunity, sort that the window isn't forever. And
But you don't feel like 11% of your portfolio is enough, or whatever that percentage was?
It's at 16.
16. That's substantial in my books. Obviously, not in yours.
Yes. I would agree. 16% is a substantial position in the portfolio, and yet I want it to be bigger.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's only so many things you can do, right? Either add new money, and you're limited by the rules of the game, where say you can only add $200 a month, or you can sell something, and then you either sell, a small piece of your big position, or you sell a whole lot of small positions. And for me, it's self-evident that this is a portfolio rebalancing opportunity. But if you want to stick to your guns and not, if you're literally excluding EOS and say, I'm not touching that, well then, you have to sell the other stuff. If you really believe that ASTS deserves to have a bigger than 16% allocation, but I think 16% is substantial. And if you don't believe in those small companies that strongly, then you're answering your own question, sell them and roll the money into ASTS.
You know what? I think this is a different slightly issue. This is, I think, where your strategy big time differs from mine. You legitimately do not really care about, call it, short-term events. And by that, I mean like months-ish.
Yeah.
Right?
100% correct.
Right. Whereas I, for example, I'm looking at I was looking at this portfolio. I was looking, where could I get some extra cash, right?
Yep.
Avita Medical just had their earnings. Shares went up 25%. Like, they were decent, but they're having some cash issues. So I doubt the market bids them up much more in the next 3 months, right? There's $41 sitting there. So for the purposes of our project, call it, that's 2 shares of ASTS. ASTS has all kinds of catalysts coming basically daily now. Like, the rhythm at which they're announcing stuff is insane. So I'm thinking to myself, why hold on to Avita Medical without any obvious catalyst in the next 3 months simply because I already have it, versus saying, you know what? I bought it for a good reason. I believe in it, but it doesn't excite me the way ASTS does. So there's $40 to sell that and reallocate, but that's short-termish, right?
It is short-termish. I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask this question to, because
No, you're exactly the right guy, because I want to balance you.
But you reject all my answers because you're like, no, those are the wrong answers because you're doing it because you're you, i.e. a sensible investor, whereas I'm me, i.e. a freaking gambler. Like, help me figure out how best to gamble. 16% is a lot. If you can't get excited about a 16% allocation, like going to the moon, whatever catalysts are going to come in, like, holy Christ, like, what do you want?
That's a good question. That's a great question. You know what I want? I think I do not agree with the gambling label in this instance, because that term is just it's all up to luck, right? But I will say a position that's about 25%, up to 25%, when properly understood and researched and all that, feels like what some of the world's best investors have done successfully, and you would not call them gamblers.
Oh, but that could be just the long tail, like survivorship bias. If you took 100 investors and they all took, say, like 25% allocation portfolios, like 4 stocks in their portfolio, like one of those 100 would do really well, and they would go on to write a book and become a famous investor, and they would be the legendary investor that succeeded with that. But you don't hear about the other 99 who failed.
I think it'd be interesting to look into that, what the stats around that is. Because, basically I'm proposing to you right now, I'm tempted to have a portfolio of about, call it 6 stocks.
Okay.
Roughly, right? Like the made bets. And I'm saying to you, this doesn't feel like gambling. This feels like a very, it's certainly riskier, right? There's no question about that.
All right, but maybe, okay, you have just answered it then. Because if you want a portfolio of 6 stocks, that's what, like a 16% allocation each, something like that. So you got that now with ASTS. That's now correctly sized in your portfolio to be one of your 6.
Yeah, there's merit to it. There's merit to looking at it that way. So, okay, let's conclude this. So, your official advice to me is what?
Be happy with your current allocation and celebrate when your catalysts come in.
Okay. Well, there you heard it, animals. After this episode releases, we'd love to hear your comments and feedback on our Patreon to see whether you think Badger is wise beyond his ears, whether Monkey is nuts for thinking this way, or somewhere in between.
Ooh.
And yeah.
Let's pick up a news item I saw just an hour ago relating to one of the companies we were just chatting about, Transmedics. So I think we've both got this in our portfolios, right? You own a little bit of Transmedics. I definitely do.
Yes, my King of the Jungle position is up 29%. Average cost of 55. Now it's 72. Love this company. Know it quite well.
Yeah, great. I bought it 6 months ago, and I haven't got it in King of the Jungle. I got my real portfolio. Bought it about 6 months ago. I added to it. Unfortunately, my timing was really off because I added to it maybe a week before this really scrappy, like 300-page short report came out, and then it's kind of, so I think I'm down on the position overall. Maybe it's not horrendous, but I think I'm down. Well, so the short report itself was like, there was some skepticism cast upon it because it made these just such egregious kind of claims. Price target of $0, like this company is fraudulent, scamming, I'm not going to give too much airtime to the claims. Well, anyway, I haven't seen the detail, but I saw just like an hour ago before we hit the record button, Oppenheimer, who I think themselves are like, they do like short reports and they take like long and short positions. I think they sort of play both sides of the market like that. They claimed that they've done their own research. They've spoken to a selection of surgeons and transplant hospitals and kind of informed people in the market. And I haven't seen the detail, and maybe I have to pay to read like the detailed Oppenheimer reports, but I've seen the press release, and they say that their checks did not find any evidence supporting key allegations in the short report. So yeah, like the short report got shorted. I think we can probably ignore the majority of that and carrying on as we are as long-term investors.
Indeed. I came to that conclusion pretty quickly. Same conclusion. Two things that occur to me. One, this is where it really pays to follow a company for a long time, because the number of earnings calls I've listened to and management conferences that I've heard, you begin to have faith in management when it's deserved. And professionals from ragtag, what's it called? Ruffians. And Transmedics is run by professionals.
Yep.
So it's harder to get scared out of stuff. But you know what else I realize? This is nuts. I've been thinking about this a lot. My qubit, my quantum, what's it called? Quantum computer incorporated fraud shitco short. I still have it.
Oh yeah, you're short. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still short on it. I think I'm about break even now, right? But here's the wild thing. It's, as we're talking about, like, it's pretty clear Transmedics, you're dealing with professional surgeons and like airlines and like hospitals. To pull off a fraud in that context for this many years with actual people's lives on the line is so improbable, right? And yet a big giant short report that's so clearly like over the top, as you said, comes along and the stock drops massively, right?
Yep.
Whereas quantum computer company has nothing. They have nothing. And yet, right, even though people know this, the stock is not trading at zero where it really ought to be. I mean, or close to one or whatever, because they make no money and they have no product, literally. So it's one of these things where the market mechanism, right, that controls price, and it's kind of a unknown. You really don't know who's behind what and how much money is going to flow in, whether it's legit or fake, and it always requires time to play out.
Yeah. And none of these things exist in a vacuum, these short reports. Like, there is the company and its history and its valuation. And, if a company is highly valued, or if a company has a high valuation, well, a short report is going to hurt it more than a company that's perhaps more reasonably priced. Yeah. So, yeah, but the key point you're making is right, though, that it takes time to become kind of intimately familiar with just the way the story unfolds in a company. And that's why I like to take a position and then add to it slowly over time, not just dive in with both feet on day one, because you have to build your own conviction rather than just relying on what other folk are telling you.
Slow and steady usually wins the race. I really hope my Qubit puts, they print their April date. I wonder, at this point, I'm like, oh, it's no longer up to fundamentals. It's like, when do the market wizards behind the curtain want the stock to go down? So fingers crossed.
Yeah, you're measuring in weeks. Let's keep track of that one because I'm intrigued. I didn't take the same bet, but I wasn't quite intrigued by that bet.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but I mean, they have to report something within, before April. So I just anyway.
The market's exuberant right now, right? And maybe this brings us on to something else I want to talk about. Like, the market is still very bubbly. Like, it's very hard to find a bargain. And like the company I'm about to mention, Palantir, just has a ludicrous valuation. But I think there is substance to crazy valuations sometimes. And then in the case of your Qubit short, it's just kind of riding the fever of, well, there was a mini quantum computing bubble which lasted for about 3 weeks, I think. But that clearly hasn't fully popped yet. And when it does, it's going to be pretty ugly. But this is a market where people are just kind of throwing money at junk, I think.
Right. Yeah. Although on Qubit's side, there has been a divergence because there's the real companies. I think there's about 3 that have legit products and people.
Right.
That has stayed bubblish, but Qubit is actually drifting down. And you could see that on the chart. It's just market, call it manipulation, that's upholding the price for now. Tell me more about Palantir, because this is one of those fascinating market conundrums where I almost want to throw my hands up and say, this is a pure, what's it called? It seems to me like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. On one hand, right, in the past, we've learned the very hard way that there is I don't know how to say this other than price matters. There is no such thing as a company being worth an infinite amount of money, no matter how amazing it is, right?
Sure.
And at the same time, when we use that same logic, we sold our Nvidia shares too early because we're like, this can't possibly be sustainable at whatever $1 trillion market cap. So how are you thinking about this insane valuation right now, and whether or not to take the sensible value investor approach and sell it for those reasons, or say, nope, not touching it no matter what?
And it is an insane valuation. It's currently 116 times gross profit. And that's way higher, really, than it's ever been in sort of recent history. So I've owned this for not that long. I've owned this one for maybe 8 or 9 months. I bought it twice. I trimmed it, and I said I was going to trim it again. And then we saw the DeepSeek news, and you and I did a whole podcast on DeepSeek, and the crazy efficiencies that clearly are still to be had in inference and AI. And it just seems to me that, we're only going to go in one direction here, where this stuff gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And if we forget about the problems that could cause Nvidia, that's going to create massive opportunity for the companies that use AI or enable AI's usage, and that's like Palantir. So everything is on their side here in terms of where the world is going. And maybe this is confirmation bias, but I saw a post on Twitter today that there's now, playing back to our episode last week where we went quite deep on like the role of government and the Doge and maybe, corruption that might be happening, where you've now got like 4 members of Congress who now are all Palantir shareholders, whereas none were previously. So like they're clearly hearing or seeing something related to probably like the military applications of this technology. Like, and then the company just like they had a stellar report, very significant growth. I've got a couple of numbers here. Yeah, 36% year-over-year growth in US revenues. In overall revenue, 52% year-over-year growth in US revenue. And they've guided for another 31% year-over-year growth. So like you'd need decades of 31% year-over-year growth to justify 120 times gross profit. Like I feel this, it might be a bubbly valuation, but I feel this bubble's pretty robust and it's probably going to keep inflating for quite some time yet with all the kind of warmongering that's still going on and probably isn't going to quieten down.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to call you out here, Badger, because you just said a funny, a robust bubble.
Yeah.
What's this bubble made of? Steel? I have this feeling of, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, with Nvidia being the weird thing that complicates this and the AI, the next wave and all that. But I'm looking at the very handy clouded judgment chart that I get weekly, which ranks the most expensive software as a service companies. And it's shocking to me. But for example, CrowdStrike is the 3rd most expensive company. We don't need to go on. It's an exquisite company, but it's 24 times the next 12 months revenue. 24, right? Second is Cloudflare at 29.
Right.
And then you get to Palantir and it's 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going on a record here. I know you didn't ask me officially.
Yeah.
I'm the one that came seeking your advice today, but I am unofficially telling you, I think in terms of principle, it's a mistake to not trim significantly at these levels. That regardless of like whatever you're reading, I think will be fine. I think if this were me, I might keep 20%. I might like split the difference this way. I might say, okay, maybe, the report was so great and all the things you mentioned, sure. But I just couldn't sleep well at night holding this at these levels.
All right. If you're serious about investing, you need to know about public.com. That's where you can invest in everything. Stocks, options, bonds, crypto. You can even earn some of the highest yields in the industry, like the 6% or higher yield you can lock in with a bond account.
Public is a FINRA-registered SIPC-insured platform that takes your investments as seriously as you do. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/wildlife and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. That's public.com/wildlife.
Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
I don't have a big allocation to it. I have trimmed it. It's about a 2% allocation in my portfolio. Like it is a bubble. It is going to pop at some point. So really I should sell the whole thing, I suppose, or at least trim it substantially. But I feel like this bubble's got legs. So it's gonna inflate for some time to come. And
So wait, who's the gambler here?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I think it's some substance, which is, maybe my thesis here is like corruption and insider knowledge and like a deteriorating geopolitical environment that is just going to favor companies like this, plus all the AI in the commercial segment with stuff. But we're more talking about the military stuff here. Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble. I don't think I'm happy to gamble with 2% positions. I wouldn't let this get above 4%, let's say.
I want to be on the record. I'm happy to be wrong for your sake. I hope this goes to 5 gazillion bananas.
Well, you were going to short it yourself, if you remember. You didn't do that.
Well,
did you?
I did. I shorted it. Then it dropped quickly, so I made money and I sold out because in hindsight, that short was being set up in theory for the longer as a longer insurance for my portfolio. So I'm lucky that I decided to just sell the same day I set it up because it just happened to drop that day. It would have been clearly a mistake to have held it. So I don't know. Any listeners, we'd love your own perspective on this. I'm on the record as saying this is a pretty close to obvious sell or major trim levels. And Badger is saying he's happy to gamble because justifying it as a small position, which the logic of which I think is a little faulty because money is money and it ought to be allocated in the best ways from one way of investing. So
Yep.
let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Valuation matters, but sometimes it doesn't matter because sometimes the story is so strong, but well, I suppose that is that. Like sometimes the story is so strong, like valuation be damned. And I'm doing this one very consciously with that in mind.
Okay.
Should we do the Uber? I've got like a news item on Uber, and then we can do the Safaris, and then we'll close. Yeah, let's do that one, and then we'll go into Safari, and then we'll close it. So anyway, let's move on from my terrible judgment and maybe talk about someone else's maybe deliberately misleading statements they might have made. So Uber's CEO Dara Khosrowshahi, I'm going to try and pronounce that again. We'll just call him Dara. So they published an investor letter quite recently, and it caught my eye because the CEO made a number of statements in that letter that I'm not sure he believes in, and I kind of wonder why he might have been positioning this the way he did. So they had like a stellar set of results recently, and it is on my radar as a company that I might want to own one day in the future. And they had a whole section in the report, in the letter, about their views on autonomous vehicles. And I'm just going to kind of bullet point summary a couple of statements. I'd like your views on what you think. So essentially, the headline here is they believe robo-taxis, they'll be real, but it's going to be a long time before they're commercially viable. And they believe there is a big window for like a decade-long potentially window for humans to human taxi drivers to coexist alongside autonomous vehicles. And let me give you the justification. I'm just going to sort of summarize it. So they claim that during periods of high demand, like rush hours and special events, humans can provide like surge capacity to meet the market demand. They believe that there's more geographic flexibility when you've got humans as part of the network, maybe to like drive vehicles to locations that are perhaps more difficult for autonomous vehicles. They believe that although autonomous vehicles are going to lower costs in the long run, they are so expensive, also requiring like ongoing maintenance, and humans are just more flexible and cost effective in periods of like low demand. And then the last point they made was customer preference. Some customers might still prefer to have like a human in the car as opposed to just being driven around by a robot. And so like some other stuff as well, some blah, blah, blah. But their view was for a long period of time, the right answer is a hybrid network of both human drivers and autonomous drivers. What do you think?
Makes sense to me on the surface. There's the whole early adopters, middle adopters, late adopters. I'm sure many people won't be courageous enough to get into a car with no driver, right, for some time. I don't disagree. None of that seems absurd to me. But maybe from the investment standpoint, I'm thinking, why would I invest in a company where I guess maybe the writing is on the wall somehow? That even if it's not today, maybe if it's not tomorrow, it's gonna.
Well, I agree. I understand what you're saying, but that's actually a different point I wanted to talk about because I think you and I disagree about that. I think there could be a space for someone like Uber, and we had that conversation a couple of episodes ago. But so rather than just sort of revisiting whether Uber's a good investment or not, well, let me share my thoughts then, because when I read this, I was actually highly skeptical, and I was wondering why they would go to such lengths to make these kind of statements. Because it's probably I think what you're right to say, like what their points kind of make sense, But maybe the point I would challenge is like the window, the time within which that might be true. Yeah, okay, so some people might want to have a human in the car, but culturally we're going to very quickly like blast through that point, and it would be so normal to have an autonomous vehicle. Like, why the hell do you want some other guy sat there with you? Rather have like your privacy to make a call or do whatever you want to do, and that's vastly preferable to having like a stranger in the car with you driving you've made to be. And I think we'll make that cultural transition really quickly, because obviously these things are going to have to be safe to even be on the road, right?
Yes, and you know what? Let me say one thing about this. There is this effect that humans have where it takes multiple instances of being exposed to something. So here in Austin, I've seen driverless Waymo cars now.
Yeah.
And the first time, it is kind of like, holy shit, there's nobody in that vehicle that's on the road. Now that I've seen it, say, 20 times, don't think twice.
Right.
And so you're right. I see. Yes, it seems almost right. It seems prophetic, but not in the right way.
Yeah. And I think you can probably apply the same argument to most of these points. Like, maybe they're true, but probably only for a very small amount of time. Like the geography one. Yeah, sure. Okay. Maybe when Waymo is the only game in town, you can only do certain like geo-fenced areas. But once there's a bunch of different like guys on the road, like Tesla, then I'm assuming they'll be able to do like a far more robust kind of A to B network. So I kind of wonder why they went to such lengths. And I wonder if it is to maybe appease their fleet of human drivers. Because I guess Uber's customer isn't like you and me, like the guys who are riding the cars. Their customers are really the drivers of the cars, because they're the guys that kind of not work for, they are, Uber provide the platform, and then those drivers, Uber drivers, are paying Uber essentially because they're doing work and giving Uber like a cut of the each ride. And so that is a bit in the same way as like Airbnb's customers are like hosts, not guests primarily, and they have to focus on like looking after the host community because that's how you kind of win. So, I do wonder a little bit. Uber's end game, they're sort of dancing around it. I mean, their end game from day one has always been, I think, about autonomous vehicles are going to come, and when they do, like, we want to own every journey. And this whole having to have like a messy, squishy human in the front seat, I felt that's always been like a temporary thing, but you need it right now, and you can't be too upfront about that, because if you piss off all of your drivers, well, they might start striking or who knows what. So anyway, just a kind of random observation there.
Yes, and maybe let me make one more. It is with shocking, astonishing speed that Elon Musk has infiltrated into the center of the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about a bunch of this in some ways, but the extent of it, I think, I don't think anybody could have predicted this.
Yep.
Where is Elon's home base? Austin, Texas. He has now, seemingly at this moment, capacity to do, for better or worse, whatever he wants. For all of Musk's, futuristic claims, like by whatever year we're going to be on Mars, he's now the latest one has been Austin will be the first city to have driverless cars by June of this year. That's only 4 months away.
Yep.
In most circumstances, I think we've been on the record saying bullshit. Mm-hmm. But now, I don't know. Why not? I mean, if he owns the country, what's the mayor going to say when the Tesla factory is in Austin, and I'm sure provides, the kinds of tax dollars that Tesla brings Austin? Like, who's going to say no to him? So I'd be skeptical about Uber's claims.
You're right. And if we really just are pinpoint about it, like I guess he essentially has the ability to defund and fire the head of like the vehicle safety testing organizations and things like that, right? So they're all probably living in fear of him. Obviously, that would be a very clear conflict of interest that could blow up very, very badly in Tesla's face when people start dying, because people will start dying once we have autonomous vehicles, because like people die every day in normal vehicles. It's just like, that's the nature of transport, right? Unfortunately, he has the ability to be influential in very inappropriate ways.
Good observation. I remain skeptical on Uber for lots of reasons.
Yeah. It's on my long list. I don't think I'm considering buying it anytime soon, but I've got an eye on it. Anyway, should we talk about two stocks in our Safari segment that maybe we are thinking about buying?
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Should I start with Planet Labs, since its ticker is PL, very, very close to Palantir?
PL. Yep.
PL. This is, very cursory level stuff. But the reason I decided to look into this one, Badger, is because of my new obsession with ASTS. And as I'm learning all things about the space economy, the first conclusion I came to is like, my God, the sort of futurist possibilities of what a kind of holistic view of the planet will allow humans to do is staggering. And I want to share a slide that shows market size of industries by comparison in 2024. And it shows the fast food industry at 789 billion, the beauty and personal care industry at 650, and then space industry as of now is 596 billion, which is the smallest of those three. Now that's a random comparison, but it's to make the point that the space industry is still relatively in its infancy. If the thesis is that we could basically do things we've never been able to do as a species from space, then obviously that becomes one of the, if not the most important new markets ever, compared to, say, putting on your makeup. That's, call it, relatively expendable. If the space market is still tiny, relatively speaking, then a bunch of companies will benefit from all the use cases. And Space Lab's mission is to image the whole world every day to allow its customers to see the changes taking place on planet Earth and make some of those changes actionable to their own whatever commercial interests. Let me give you 3 concrete examples because that might seem a little abstract. By the way, as you'll see, this is an interesting 50-50 company that has obvious commercial interest and also a lot of, call it socially ethical, conscious investors, conscious capital investors. You might want to look into this eco-sensitive type of thing. So, for example, in Brazil, deforestation is a big problem. But from the ground, you can't really see exactly where it's happening and how quickly and who's doing it. But you can see that very easily with Planet Labs imaging. Another wonderful use case, when the LA fires were burning everything to the ground, emergency crews didn't necessarily know where to go and what buildings needed rescuing. You could see all of that, and Planet Labs was communicating with emergency crews almost in real time. That gap between when the image is taken and when it's put to use is now shortening as the technology improves, especially with the latest models, which will have Nvidia chips and basically, continue to improve over time. Another fascinating example, in the oceans, huge, the biggest things we have on the planet, geographically speaking, there's a bunch of illegal activities, pirates and illegal fishing and all kinds of things that you can't really see unless you have a subscription to one of these services, and then you could easily see where the illegal tankers are and so forth. So really fascinating use cases, and I'm sure many that haven't really even come to mind yet. So that's the sort of narrative. I heard it talked about as a queryable Earth, sort of like what Google did for indexing human stuff. Here we're indexing the planet as a whole from space and figuring out what to do with that info. I'm not impressed by their finances. They're growing something like 11%, I think, but they're still losing money. Net operating margins, they're negative. So, in this environment, that's good. But if the market turns, watch out. And I think I want to add that my critique, the most obvious one to me as an investor in ASTS, as somebody looking into, the competition between ASTS and Starlink, much bigger companies. I'm thinking, like, what's going to prevent one of those behemoths from not too long from now adding these kind of imaging capacities to their own fleet? So in other words, what's the moat here? It's here now. Will it be gone tomorrow? So fascinating company, really interesting, but I don't think I'll be making any purchases at this moment.
All right, very good. Interesting. It's good to hear another space stock anyway, because it is a sector we're both interested in. Like I'm a SpaceX and Rocket Lab shareholder, and you've got ASTS. So yeah, interesting one in the portfolio.
Cool. And for any listeners, check out their investing earnings call. They have some really fascinating pictures. It's really cool looking.
Okay, should I say about a stock I also think is interesting, but I won't be investing in, but for very different reasons. So this week I took a look at, it's almost like meme stock fever, Hims and Hers Health, with ticker Hims, HIMS. You heard of this one?
I have. Definitely has cultish vibes.
Yeah. Let me summarize what their main products are, and then maybe you can tell us which of their 3 products interested you. So, this one caught my radar because you pulled my leg last week, because my last 2 Safari stocks, I did sausage rolls, and then I did like cultured meat, Mosa meat. And this week I'm kind of combating them and that like bad food with a company that has a range of weight loss drugs. So they have their own versions of, well, not versions of, they sell like GLP-1s, like semaglutide. So these are things like Ozempic and Wegovy is like another one of those drugs. And Hims are selling them at actually almost kind of bargain prices compared to some of the other manufacturers and online pharmacies. So they're doing like good growth, and they don't break out their segments, but it seems like that's actually quite a big significant part of their revenue right now. They also have a whole range of hair loss treatments, and they have a whole bunch of what are colloquially referred to on Reddit as boner pills, basically like sexual function stuff. So I think they're their 3 main segments, and they're quite interesting telehealth company, really. And I'm not going to invest in this one because I burnt my ass with Teladoc. And these aren't really, it's not a telehealth company, but they have an interesting model. So you can buy some of these products from, say, Amazon, and people who look at this stock are always like, some part of the bear case is, well, Hims is just going to get eaten up by Amazon because Amazon will be able to just like destroy them on margins and just sell the same stuff cheaper. But Hims' model is a bit different because you can just buy things, but you could also have like a relationship with one of Hims' doctors, which are in this sort of network, and they have medical practitioners all over the US. And then you have more like a regular kind of doctor-patient relationship, and then they prescribe whichever doses of whichever things. And maybe if you fix your weight and your hair loss, you might suddenly find you need to sort out your sexual function because you might be getting a bit more action when you've lost a bit of weight.
Back in the game. Okay, let me be at it. Let me back at it, Badger.
So anyway, I think it's an interesting company. I don't like the sector, so I'm staying away from it. But the financials are actually pretty good. Like they've just flipped into being like properly net income positive. I think maybe the last 6 months ago. They're well capitalized. They've got a bunch of cash. They seem to be quite early in their growth phase, but they're growing subscribers at a good clip. They've still only got like 2 million customers, and like the potential market for this stuff is quite big. I'd say at least there's 330 million Americans, right? There's probably a chunk more than 2 million that actually might want some of these kind of treatments, or at least consider them. And and I said the word subscribers there, that's kind of key to the thesis. This is like a recurring revenue business model, because once you sign up, you're paying every month or every quarter for whatever treatment. like, you know, you're going to keep taking those treatments for the rest of your life, potentially, if you want to keep the weight off. So, yeah, it's a bit like, I'm not trying to say it's like a software SaaS company, but it is like a heavy recurring revenue company. So those are good business models. What do you
think? Okay. On our in our Patreon community, one of our members pointed us to a podcast episode about what is it, GLP-1 drugs.
Yeah.
And I listened to it. So glory of our Patreons, praise be to you. Fascinating, because, you know, it was a conversation with an expert in this field. And the topic was, are these a kind of miracle drug category because they seem to be curing everything? Fascinating listen. Hop over to our Patreon to find that link in podcast. And it got me thinking, you know, how often do we get a drug that seems to, you know, is helping people lose weight and reducing Alzheimer's plaques by 11% and, you know, like so many things. So for that reason alone, it has my curiosity piqued. I don't understand. I really don't understand. I don't trust cultish meme stocks in biohealth because I know that industry requires expertise, and I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. and if we stay on like the weight loss piece, like they had quite they made the news last week because they had a pretty controversial Super Bowl ad, and I think there's I did watch the ad. It's quite cool, and it's a bit odd. Like you don't know it's hymns until the end of the advert, and you see these like very unhealthy Americans, unfortunately, living a not a very good lifestyle, and the advert kind of points at like a poor food and kind of medical culture in the US, and then it ends with, you know, take these injections and kind of fix everything. And there's no like medical disclaimers, so I think there are some questions about whether it's even legal for them to have put that out. But it was effective. Apparently, like just post that ad, traffic to their website was up 650%. So that obviously was probably a good investment of their marketing dollars. But yeah, you know, you're right. These are drugs that the world probably needs more of. And if these guys can like help build the market and get them into people's arms at like a cheaper price, then like that in the round, that's really good long term. Because if, you know, however people lose a ton of weight, if they can, you're then going to avoid all the horrific costs and health, you know, issues that come from like heart conditions and blood pressure and all the other stuff that kind of costs the government a fortune because people are unhealthy to start with.
In fact, that reminds me, one of the main ways this stuff works is it has something to do with regulating brain function that has to do with addictive behaviors, including eating, but also including drinking and including whatever people can become addicted to. So I think the market is extremely exciting. I just don't know if this is the company or a lot more. I would need to do a lot more research on the.
I kind of like it. I did enough due diligence on it for this to get to the point where I said to a friend the other day, like, this actually looks like a reasonable investment. Actually, let's take a quick look at the valuation because it's kind of wild. Like you can see here, like the market cap of the company is just literally like hockey sticked in just pretty much since the start of this year, and it's now what, like a 12, nearly 13, $13 billion company. So there is like a lot of kind of culty, memey stuff just behind it right now. But even at this valuation, it doesn't seem egregious. It is growing at a good rate, and it's got a long way to run potentially. I'm just not touching it because it's kind of not my wheelhouse.
Right. And in biotechs, we know that they're some of the world's most valuable companies. They could get to hundreds of billions.
Yeah.
So, you know, this could be one of those 10x companies where you want a small position.
So these guys don't like manufacture any of these drugs. They're more like a marketplace for them. That probably wraps up our long schedule for today. Anything else You enjoy our discussion this week, Krzysztof?
No, you were intolerable. You gave me bad advice, and of course I did. Special shout out, though, to our new Patreons, Vince and Andrew H., and all the dolphins that we have swimming in the jungle now, as weird as that might be. Thank you for joining our community. You're making it kick-ass. Patreon.com/Wall Street Wildlife. If you'd like to hop into the jungle with us, we'd love to have you.
I want to say to our Patreons, we are working on the merch. We know that we announced it to you guys like 2 weeks ago, and you haven't seen anything just yet. Well, we are working on it.
That's right. Get to it, Badger.
Yeah.
Get to it, buddy.
I'm a sick man. Okay. Alrighty. This was Wall Street Wildlife. Are you ready to become a beast of an investor?
Your journey starts here.
A reminder that the people on this program may hold positions in the companies that are mentioned. Buying and selling stock carries financial risk, which could include loss of capital. The views in this program should not be taken as personalized advice. Before acting on any of the information provided, listeners are encouraged to consult a financial or tax professional.